What's up, you guys? It's Steve here, and yesterday I reported to you guys live while it was happening that President Joe Biden was giving a speech updating us on the current status of Ukraine, Russia, and also promoting stimulus and Build Back Better. And reports hadn't come out yet because it was happening live, but now they're out, and I've got some updates for you in today's video. And this is your stimulus and Build Back Better update. Now, first up, I'm going to be sharing with you the breaking news of what's unfolding today, as today was reported to be the day that it was very likely that Russia might attack Ukraine. Now, we've got some updates as Vladimir Putin yesterday said they were going to be withdrawing troops. Turns out they're not. And I'm going to share with you some video footage and articles coming out today. Now, in addition to that, President Joe Biden did promote the Build Back Better bill and more stimulus, and he's saying more is going to be on the way. And he's saying this is just the beginning. As I've been reporting to you here on the channel, there are calls for more phases of stimulus to help us through this pandemic. We're hearing for businesses to help combat the pandemic, and also we're waiting to see if there's going to be more direct payments to people in the form of stimulus checks, child tax credits, other provisions. Those are going out right now on state, city, and county levels, and I keep you up to date on those here on the channel, but we're going to see if they go out nationally on a federal level. Now, in addition to that, also on the to-do list for Congress is passing another government funding bill, and they need to do it this week because this Friday is the deadline. I've got video footage, articles, gonna get you caught up on everything unfolding right now. So let's go ahead and dive right in. And let's start off though, if you could do me a quick favor, just takes a second, by smashing the like button for the YouTube algorithm. Helps me out a ton, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Also, leave your comments, share this out if you think it's gonna help out other people. If this is your first time here and you wanna stay up to date, totally free to do so. All you gotta do is hit that subscribe button, turn on that notification bell. You can come join the Ram fam, totally free. And if you got any specific questions for me, I'm easy to get a hold of directly. All you gotta do is hop on Instagram, shoot me a DM at SteveRam3. But with that being said, you guys, let's go ahead and dive right in. And let's start off with the breaking news of what's unfolding right now between Russia and Ukraine. As we're seeing articles like this morning, take a look. Russia is continuing to build up forces near Ukraine, NATO chief says. Now, this comes after yesterday. We had heard that Russia, Vladimir Putin, had said they were going to be backing off of the border, but a lot of people were skeptical because after they said this, they didn't actually see that really happening. And then today we're getting reports they're actually building up more. And today was the day we heard there could possibly be an attack launched. So the article says Russia is continuing its military buildup around Ukraine. The North Atlantic Treaty Organization Secretary General said, even as Moscow announced that it began drawing down some of its troops and released footage of tanks and armored personnel carriers being removed from the Crimean Peninsula. Now, on Wednesday, the day on which some U.S. intelligence officials had said that Russian invasion was likely to occur, Ukrainians rallied across the country in a display of solidarity and defiance, raising the national flag and singing the anthem in the morning ceremonies. Now, the country was rattled by cyber attacks the previous night that targeted two of its biggest banks, temporarily disrupting payments and showing zero balances on accounts. And we have heard the signs from Moscow about the readiness to continue diplomatic efforts, NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg said, as defense ministers from the alliance of 30 member states gathered in Brussels. But so far, we have not seen any de-escalation on the ground. On the contrary, it appears that Russia continues to build up its military. So you guys, we're hearing contrary from what they were actually saying, and we're going to be taking a look at some video footage of what Biden had to say yesterday, and it's going to be reported. This does not have a tone of peace treaty. It sounds like preparations for war. Let's go ahead and take a look.
If Russia targets Americans in Ukraine, we will respond forcefully. And if Russia attacks the United States or our allies through asymmetric means, like disruptive cyber attacks against our companies or critical infrastructure, we are prepared to respond. But we're moving in lockstep with our NATO allies and partners to deepen our collective defense against threats in cyberspace.
Today, the president making clear the U.S. is prepared to defend its allies against potential Russian aggression, yet Vladimir Putin's motives have remained elusive. The New York Times summing it up this way. Putin's calculus, according to a U.S. official, is likely shifting as he weighs the changing costs of an invasion and he assesses what he could get from negotiations. Putin, who began his career as a KGB officer, is a particular challenge because he avoids electronic devices, oftentimes bans note takers, and tells his aides little. there is a limit to how much intelligence agency can learn about his intentions and thinking. With us tonight, Ben Rhodes, former Deputy National Security Advisor for President Obama. His latest book is After the Fall, Being American in the World We've Made. Good to see you, Ben. Perfect person to talk to right now because you were in those meetings during the Obama administration. So take us behind the scenes, what it's like negotiating with Vladimir Putin and trying to nail down his motives and influence his moves.
Well, I think the important thing about being in the room with Vladimir Putin, and I was in lengthy phone calls, lengthy bilateral meetings with him, including in the Ukraine crises after 2014. First of all, he will lie. He will lie with ease. And so when you see him changing his tone, I think it's important, as President Biden said today, that you have to verify that by monitoring his actions. I think the other thing that he will often do in meetings is he will steer the conversation to his list of grievances. You will be raising things like, why are you massing troops around the Ukrainian border? He will give you a litany of the history of what he believes is an effort to humiliate Russia, the expansion and enlargement of NATO, the kind of dismissal of Russian concerns. There's a lot of whataboutism from Vladimir Putin. He wants the argument and the negotiation to be entirely on his terms, not your terms. And I think what President Biden was trying to do in that speech today and what he's been trying to do throughout this crisis is center this crisis on what Putin is doing around Ukraine and not on the demands that Putin is making. And I think that's the only thing you can do with Vladimir Putin is you have to drive the negotiation and the conversation to the reality on the ground that you're trying to deal with and not get drawn into his version of reality, which is one in which the U.S. essentially either has to make a significant amount of concessions or he's going to potentially invade a sovereign country.
So to that point, you were also a former speechwriter for President Obama. You fully understand the importance of carefully crafting such potentially high stakes remarks. I wonder what you make of what the president said today, as well as maybe what he chose not to say.
I was very struck, Chris, by the tone today, because they did have a choice. They could have reacted to kind of Putin's recent feints towards diplomacy. And he did, President Biden at the beginning, say, of course, that's our preference. And he laid out the terms on which the U.S. is prepared to discuss a range of things around European security and troop deployments and missile deployments. But it did not sound like a president who truly believed the sincerity of Vladimir Putin's recent, more diplomatic words. He seemed like a president who was trying to prepare the United States, the Russian people, and the world for the consequences of a Russian invasion. He spoke at length about the potential costs and consequences to the American people, why this should matter to them, both because of the principles at stake in Ukraine, but also because of the fact that if we impose sanctions on Russia, that could have an impact on our economy. Russia could choose to engage in cyber attacks on U.S. businesses and U.S. infrastructure. Most extremely, as you played in your clip, Russia could choose to target Americans who are in Ukraine or to further try to destabilize American allies. And so this was a president who was trying to lay out for people not just his position and not just his approach to diplomacy, which is one in which he's willing to negotiate, but not willing to make certain compromises that go beyond his comfort level. This was a president trying to prepare the American public for what could be a very difficult foreign policy challenge, the likes of which we haven't seen in a long time in terms of a war in Europe, and one that could rebound on the American people in a variety of different ways.
So there you have it, you guys. Now, I will keep you up to date on whatever unfolds. If things de-escalate or if they start to ramp up, I'll make sure that you know here on the channel. Now, in addition to that, yesterday I reported to you that President Joe Biden also was giving a speech and he was promoting more stimulus phases and Build Back Better. And as you know, negotiations are taking place. We heard the original version of the Build Back Better was dead. However, they're going to modify it, resurrect it, probably rename it, and do something they can all agree upon, because right now, in order for them to pass this through the Senate with a majority vote known as reconciliation, they need all 50 Democratic senators on board to support it, and that includes Senator Joe Manchin, who is one of the ones that is opposed to more spending. And we're hearing that progressives, Democratic leaders, the president, they're saying they're going to be creating this Build Back Better bill revised in a way that it will no longer add any debt. As a matter of fact, it will combat inflation. And I shared that with you yesterday, and we also heard that from Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi. And they want to get this all done by March 1st. That is the deadline, and we will see. We heard that that is kind of a soft deadline, but now we're seeing articles coming out like this. Take a look, you guys, Biden meets with county leaders in D.C. and promotes the Build Back Better plan. President Joe Biden, during a Tuesday meeting yesterday with county leaders, called on Congress to pass his stalled social spending package as a way to fight inflation, saying that it would help with the expenses that families are facing. And he said families are getting clobbered by the cost of everyday things. Biden told members of the National Association of Counties at the conference, and he stressed that his plan, Build Back Better, would help Americans who are seeing higher prices in grocery stores and high gas prices due to inflation. That's what my Build Back Better plan is all about, he said. Now, the massive social spending and climate plan floundered in the Senate after opposition emerged among key Democrats like West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema. Now, Biden added that he was pleased that states and local governments were implementing funding from the $1.2 trillion bipartisan infrastructure law and the American Rescue Plan, a relief package that was passed last year by Congress. And that is the one that we're seeing state, city, and county level checks coming out from, as different localities are starting to pass their own forms of stimulus as we wait to see what will be passed on a federal level. And he said, this is only the beginning. And as I mentioned to you here on the channel, they are pushing for more stimulus. So you guys, we will see what unfolds with that, but it looks like he is continuing to push this, and we will see what unfolds with the revised Build Back Better plan. Now, that's not all. There's a lot going on. In addition to that, take a look at this, you guys. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, he's calling on the Senate to pass a stopgap funding bill by the week's end to avoid even a hint of a government shutdown. And that's right. As you know before, they passed a stopgap funding bill, a continuing resolution to just kind of kick the can down the road, fund the government just a little bit more, but we still have not had a revised government funding. So we need to do that for the entire year. They keep kicking it down the road and looks like they want to do it again. Take a look, you guys. Lawmakers will try to pass a short-term government funding extension by a Friday deadline, but a handful of Republican senators are threatening to gum up the works, raising questions about when the Senate will actually be able to vote. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer warned on Tuesday that before the end of the week, the Senate must come to an agreement to pass a short-term extension of government funding ahead of a February 18th deadline. So this Friday is the deadline, and we're going to be seeing if they're going to be able to do a government spending bill. So take a look. He reiterated that he remains optimistic that Democrats and Republicans will keep working together to reach a deal and pass a broader full-year government spending package. But in the meantime, both sides should come to an agreement to make sure the continuing resolution, the short-term funding of the government, is passed by the chamber to avoid even a hint of a government shutdown. So you guys, let's take a look. They want to go ahead and do this till March 11th, so kicking it down the road about another month or so. Take a look at what Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer had to say.
Now next, on the CR and on the CR. Before the end of the week, the Senate must come to an agreement to pass a short-term extension of government funding in order to give appropriators more time to complete a year-long omnibus. It's the most responsible thing we can do to support our appropriators as they continue their bipartisan work to finish an omnibus. No one, and certainly not my Republican colleagues, want a Republican government shutdown. So I'm hopeful that they will cooperate with us to pass this necessary CR, which every single Democrat wants to happen, and will cooperate to make sure that it happens. Once again, I thank Chairman Leahy and Ranking Member Shelby for their leadership and for working in good faith to arrive at a year-long spending agreement. I also commend my colleagues in the House, Chairman DeLauro and Ranking Member Granger, Democrat and Republican, for their work. A year-long omnibus is 1,000 times better than relying on CRs, continuing resolutions, to lurch from one short-term extension to the next. I remain optimistic that both sides will keep working together on drafting legislation to fund the government so it can fully serve the American people while keep us safe here at home. And in the meantime, both sides should come to an agreement to make sure the CR, the continuing resolution, the short-term funding of the government, is passed by this chamber and avoid any even hint of a government shutdown.
So there you have it, you guys. Another to-do list item on the agenda for Congress, and I will keep you up to date here on the channel. Now, also, if you missed my videos yesterday, I shared with you some updates on new stimulus provisions going out on state, county, city levels. I will keep you up to date as more of those roll out. We're getting word almost every other day now, and I'll make sure that you know what's available to you. A lot of them, you have to apply for them, and you have short windows of opportunity to do so. So as soon as I get word, I'll let you know, so be sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you're notified right away on updates. But with that being said, you guys, thank you so much for joining me. As always, if you made it this far and you haven't already, don't forget, smash that like button for the algorithm. Helps on my channel a ton. I appreciate it. Also consider joining my second channel, Steve Ram Finance, to learn about growing wealth and personal finance. And if you got any specific questions for me, I'm easy to get a hold of directly. All you got to do is hop on Instagram, shoot me a DM at SteveRam3. But with that being said, you guys, hope this reaches you well, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care. God bless. This is Steve.